Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, I surely appreciate your support. Folks, I always like to tell everybody at the start of these videos, I build these videos to help like-minded folks just like you and I to get to the finish line quicker but more proficiently. With that being said, guys, today we are talking about very timely situations this time of the year. My goal is to help as many people throughout the habitat season, if you will, throughout the building season, in preparation for an excellent deer hunt and hunting season. My goal is to help as many folks as I possibly can. The sad part of this is, guys, is it's because of a YouTube channel like mine, or a lot of information that's very easy and available at any time. I find what folks get themselves in trouble doing is they're watching situations or topics, let's say, that aren't timely, that don't pertain to what we should be doing right now. So I see, sadly, guys, I see folks looking at, which is, I understand it, looking at secluded bedding areas. I want bucks to bed on my property. Don't we all, right? Here's the sad truth, though, guys. If you start here, bucks, deer in general, don't know property lines, right? They know correct habitat. So if you build a big, beautiful food plot and your doe bedding is, let's just write this on the board real quick here. If you build a big, beautiful food plot right here, right, and the nearest correct habitat is over here in a bunch of hinge cuts you did, that's a quarter mile from there, or 300 or 400 yards from there, let's say, right? The does are going to transfer from here all the way to here, right? What happens is your bucks then are probably twice as far, depending on contour and structure and everything else, density. Your bucks are that much further. Well, you got to own a boatload of property to have the potential to house a buck at that point. That's not what we want to do. Guys, we want to move this idea right up here, right up front, and we want to build this bedding on or near this food source. So I'm going to share something with you here, first and foremost. So that's why we do that. Ladies first. Most folks, guys, most common strategy in bedding creations is there's folks that are starting to understand this whole process. Bed does within the first 100-yard rim of your food plots, right? Here's the problem. I don't do this in a low-pressured state, and I surely wouldn't do this in a high-pressured state. I think a lot of folks are understanding the mentality of hooking amenities together. So in other words, maybe a mulch trail, maybe a hand clip trail between food sources, right? So bringing a food plot, this is what happens, bringing a line of travel in and out of a food plot. That's great if that food plot's maybe a shot plot, it's very secluded, it's long and linear, it's quarter acre, half acre's even big for me to do this. But guys, you don't want to force that buck to go into that open area, that open field, to be able to scent check this area. So if you come in here and you only build this, you start building it, I should say, right tight to the, right tight to the field. The only way when he's cruising, he has to go out here and cruise this to be proficient. Now, can he get in it and dissect it? Maybe, maybe not. But the goal is this is what he's going to do at night, right? This is what he's going to cruise at night, and this will all have scrapes out here. But what good is it doing you if it's at night, right? How to make a property flow proficient. So let's say two things. Let's say you are a candidate and you did, not knowing, or someone recommended, or whatever the case is, miscommunication, whatever. And let's say your habitat starts right here. Your doe bedding starts right in here, and you go in and maybe you start hinge cutting some trees, and you got some habitat, a hack and squirt, and you kill cut a few trees, and you get all this structure in here. There's an easy way to cure this, right? What you need to do, guys, is you want to be able to go in here and mulch this trail. Start it back where you can put a tree stand and make an intersection. You want to allow this buck to slide past here and be able to have an opportunity that allows him to slide through and scent check the majority of this bedding area and not have to expose himself out to that food plot. Huge piece of the puzzle. Kind of a separate video as far as transition, speak, and stuff like that. But just remember, it's not the end of the world if you do it wrong up front, because you can just cut that trail back out. Highly recommend that, guys. Like I said, that's a high pressured state mentality focus, because I'm not the one that's sitting on top of these food plots to hunt anyway. That's why you see everybody just making a line into the food plot. That's why, because we're sitting on top of them, and I'm not sitting on top of it. Now, if this is a shot plot, then yes, you could do this, but what I'm doing then is I'm creating more of a hub out here, if you will, and my bedding areas are further away from it because I got to get on that plot and away from it. If you tried to hunt this situation right here, guys, not only in the morning are you going to blow the does off from this, you come in here in the PM and you're too close, the does, it just doesn't work. Hence the reason I'm not that big fan of that. Hunting the food source. Now, if I can sit in this spot, or this is a box blind or a tree stand, and I can reach out and touch that food plot with a gun, I'm all about it, right? So, something to keep in mind, guys, that's doe bedding. That's why we build it first. That's the mentality, to draw all of this drama all the way around our property. So, now that we have this, I'll just kind of draw this in here for you guys. Let's just use this mentality, right? This 40-acre mentality that we always speak of, just talking square properties. If you go around this and you build doe bedding to the outside, let's say in certain areas where your food plots, pertaining to your food plots, guys, right? Food plot, and around the property, something like this. What you're doing is you're sucking all the drama. First and foremost, you're sucking all the drama out of a potential core setting and pushing it to the outside. That's the number one reason why we do this. So in here, let's talk about this real quick. The only difference, guys, of how you build these, the only difference in these three different locations, or these three different builds, is size and location. That's the only difference between them, right? You can build them the same way. You can have the same, tree species. You can have the same mentality as far as what you hinge cut, how you're building them. They're just different in size and location. So, doe bedding is nearest your food sources, right? So first and foremost, bed your does, understand that. How we're going to do this in here, guys, is the first thing that I recommend doing, I recommend going into this area and telling yourself, okay, I need to change 50% of what's going on in these areas. Maybe it ends up being more, but if you start with 50%, you won't get yourself in trouble. So I start looking at this as, okay, we want a whole boatload of sunlight to that area, right? It doesn't mean hinge cut the whole thing, possibly, unless you have a certain size of species of a tree. It doesn't mean clear cut the whole thing, right? These areas, guys, when we're doing FSI, this area out here, is your area of your FSI, your core that you logged. These areas we need to bring down even further, right? When I say bring down, I mean bring down the sun even further, bring down the canopy, less canopy. This is, so you've got big, beautiful timber out here on your access, right? You've got lower timber through a select cut, it's more perforated, right, through a select cut down to 14, 16 inches. And here in a bedding area, the sunlight is, you got all of it in here, right? So, and structure. So what I do, 50%, I want to change. So I go in there, first and foremost, I start looking at big, beautiful canopy. If there's anything left in there, if you're building this and you didn't do any logging or FSI strategies before this, I start looking at, okay, and this piece, guys, is part of your FSI, right? Your forest stand improvement. This is piece of it. It's just the third piece of it, second piece of that, right? So you go in there and you look at the big, beautiful canopy and you start surveying. If there's anything left, maybe if you've already got structure because of logging and stuff on the ground, just hack and squirt those, double girdle them, right? People will tell you, oh, don't girdle anything, it's dangerous. Well, guys, it falls apart from the top down. Your luck would have to be way worse than mine. Not saying it hasn't happened before, and God, Lord willing, it never happens. But it falls apart just over time, But you double girdle it because then you don't have to go as strong with one girdle. You go strong with one girdle, it's a weak point, right? So I go double girdle, and then I hack and squirt, girdle and squirt the herbicide. So what you need to look at, guys, is you need to look into Craig Harper's cocktail, and it's a the Craig Harper. Let's just put it down here so you can take a screenshot of it and look it up. Craig Harper cocktail. And what that is, guys, research that. That's garland, water, and arsenic. It's all in there in that solution. And look that up, get the ingredients, mix it. A little bit goes a long ways, a couple squirts. That's what you want to be able to use when you're using the squirt. That's your kill, if you will, your herbicide. So you look in there, guys, and if there's already structure on the ground, all you might have to do is just make sure, if there's what I refer to as keep trees, right? If there's a really nice white oak in here, and there's a really nice white oak here, maybe there's one in the back, something like that, go ahead and leave those big, beautiful white oak in there. But you can see there's a lot of daylight in between it, right? Look at that and say, okay, I want them to rain a little, I want that to rain a little food, a little hard mass down in these bedding areas. So I got browse and hard bedding, or hard mass as well, right? So you look at that, and anything else, hard maple, popple, I would kill cut popple, but hard maple's another one, hickory, hard hickory, stuff like that, guys. Big canopy, I can squirt it. If there's room and it's not too trashy on the forest floor, then cut them down, kill cut them, flush cut them, get them down to the ground, fell them down to the ground. So let's just write this down here. One is canopy removal, right? Second thing we go to, guys, and this pertains to all of these, remember, right? Because we're building them the same way, we're just building them for a different reason and a different location. So number two would be, I look at invasives. I start looking at the invasive side of this. Okay, is there any invasives, right? Is there any invasives as far as Osage orange, white, yellow, black locust, cedar, red cedar trees? Don't take all your red cedars away because you want a little thermal. If you take them all away, you're just going to have to plant them back in. Invasives, something that's hindering good growth, just nasty, you don't need it, right? Buckthorn, something like that. Autumn olive. Not if that's the only thing in that area, autumn olive, don't take it all out, but if because it's structure, right? It's good deer habitat, it's an invasive, but we don't want to take it all away. So that's what I look at. How you do them, guys, is I wouldn't hinge cut the invasives unless it's on the edge of a field or something out here where you need to, maybe you can do them in here, and maybe you can just hinge a couple in here to promote that line of travel past it. And you can bring that structure up so it's not just laying on the ground. Something to give a little, edge. It's going to die. You really don't want it to live. So what I would do is, if you hinge cut your invasives, go in with a stump paste is what we call it, right? Or take the Craig Harper cocktail and make sure you spray the exterior rim, that cambium layer, and kill that tree. What do you need now? If you have the right size tree, 6-8 inch trees, 4-6-8 inch trees, and there's a need for it because you need more structure. Now, if you have plenty of structure by the canopy that you cut down, big trees you cut down, and your invasives you cut down, you don't need hinge cuts. But if you still need structure, and when I say structure, guys, you have to be able to navigate around this place without creating a predator trap. But here's the deal. If you know one of these invasives is going to die and it's not going to have any food and it's low to the ground, and you've got a tree that you want, you can grab a hold of maybe a maple or a hickory or an oak that's not a big oak that you've already left, right? I know I said hinge cut oak, so man, everybody's probably turning me into the anti-habitat people here, if you will. But yes, small oaks that you've already kept your big producers, guys. You don't want a whole boatload of oaks in these areas, because if you have food, all your food, all your food, protection, why were they going to come out? You got to put your oaks, separate video, you got to put your oaks in a separate area, right? But it's good idea to have a little bit of them in there. But so now we're talking about hinge cutting possibility, right? It's like, okay, do I need it? I look at those. Maybe I fell one of them down on top of that stuff that I know is going to die, them invasives. It's good food. They got the protection of the invasive, that structure. Now they've got some hinge. And when I hinge, you know, I'm a pretty tall guy, I'm 6'6", but I hinge right here. Not at my face, not way low, I hinge right here. So if they have to get underneath it, they can, but about 90%, we're gonna have another hinge cut video here, guys, but the 80% of that tree, let's say, is on the ground or close to ground level where they can reach it. So recap, and then these other ones are gonna go quick. Recap here, guys, is this. The reason that we look at this is 50% because you don't litter the ground up as much. You don't want it to be a habitat nightmare. You don't want it to be what I refer to as a predator trap. In other words, you're trapping deer in these areas for predators. A predator trap, right? So that's what I refer to that as. That's why we're doing that. So maybe you do some hinging, maybe you don't. Don't do this, guys. Don't go in here and forget about these two pieces and just go in and start hinge cutting. Why? Here's the deal. If you don't remove the canopy in there, let's say logging hadn't taken place and you just want to go in and bake a bunch of bedding. You go in here and do some hinge cutting in any of these areas, and you don't remove the big canopy first, what's going to happen is the sunlight can't get to those areas, so your hinges are going to die. Then once you figure out that your hinges are dead, you figure out that you need more daylight. So you're going to cut the big trees down. Well, guess what? You're going to crush your hinges. So either way, you're going to kill your hinges. It's not going to work. So it's a process. Release the canopy. If you don't want to cut them big trees down and you don't feel comfortable, by all means, just hack and squirt them. So hack and squirting. Hack with a hatchet, squirt in. Double girdling, squirting in there. Just double girdle sometimes will do the job. Guys, what I like to do is I like to have, a lot of my clients do this, and you know, I recommend they do this because it's easy. Take a electric drill with a couple batteries in their backpack or whatever, take the Craig Harper cocktail. You would be shocked on how much hacking and squirting that you can do. Because I don't know if you've ever taken a baseball bat and hit an oak tree with it 1,000 times, but your arms are noodles at the end of the day, right? It's not fun. A drill, you gotta have multiple batteries. Take a 3/4 inch spade bit or a 1 inch spade bit on a 45 and go to these trees and go in there about 4, depending on the size of the tree, right? But 3, 4, 5 inches through the cambium layer. And what you start doing is you start poking holes in. So 1 hole or 1 hack per, we're gonna talk about this in another video, but per 4 inches. So make a couple cuts around that and squirt that in. A hack, guys, and the reason it works with a hack and a hatchet is because you put that angle in and it makes a cup. It keeps the herbicide in there. But if you use a drill, you're filling that hole up, right? You're taking the opportunity to fill that hole up. It can't get away, and it just leaches through into that cambium layer, and most of them don't walk away from it. So that's the first step, right? Because if you don't do that first and you just go to hinge cutting, you're going to kill your hinges. Your hinges are going to die because there's no daylight. Like I said, then you go to the next step and you're going to try to cut them down and you're going to crush them anyway. So that's why, guys, that's the thought process. That's why we start with doe bedding, because here's the deal. If these other two don't get built, your drama is sucked out of the core, potentially, out of the core, giving them the first option. Hey, guys, does come out here. That invites, it leaves the door open for the next 2 steps. So going on to the next one here, guys, the habitat pocket. This line of travel that we speak of, right, continues around the farm. You've got a stand here, licking branch stands are X's, right? We know where these stand locations are. Now we know which side of that line of travel, right, that we need to build a habitat pocket. These habitat pockets can be, 30 to 50 feet in diameter. They can be long and linear. Maybe they're a 1/4 acre. Most of my habitat pockets probably aren't a 1/2 acre, so somewhere less than that, right? But I look at the distance here. In this situation, what I would do is I would put 2 in here, right? I'd leave a gap and I'd put 2. Notice I'm not putting these right in front of the tree stands, right? And the reason for that is because you got to be able to get in and out of that stand without getting busted. So these are, down the chain, each side of your stands, right? You go in there, those areas, you build them the same way that we built these. You go in there, making those habitat pockets, removing the canopy, looking at your invasives, possibly doing hinges, right? So directional hinge cutting, guys, is a big thing on this in these pockets. I start with flaring everything, not everything, but if I do need to cut or kill cut or hinge, I look at tipping stuff to the outside first. It creates this pocket, if you will. You got to be able to let deer get in and out of these, so don't do all of them, right? And then if you are a hinge cut candidate or you're invasives, maybe you tip a couple in here like this and these deer can still navigate around. So building in the same way, just a different location for a different reason. This step, guys, is to daisy chain movement on the right side of line of travel, putting that deer there, cruising, scent checking those areas, because these deer don't know property lines. It's a big piece. I keep saying that, and I'll keep saying that to everybody. They don't know property lines. They just know correct habitat. So in order for them to scent check these areas, they don't know what are in those. They just know cruising buck mentality or security early season tells me I want to scent check those areas to make sure what's in them, find out what's in them. Early season, it's security. Later in the season, it gets to a point where it starts becoming a scent checkability part and looking for does, right? So, does first, habitat pocket second, because of the flow of the property, right? But the reason you're doing these, guys, is for overflow does, hence the word transition, that just want to be family, right? They don't want the big groups. This might hold, if this is an acre food plot, this is going to be an acre doe bedding. That might hold, 10, 15 does. This is going to hold 2 or 3, maybe 2 or 3 here. What you're doing, guys, is you're backing up your doe bedding potential. You're backing it up. The next step here, guys, is this. You're looking at the potential to house deer. If it's not does, the next step in line is immature bucks, something that's been booted away from the family, right? You give them the next option. So now you're taking the drama, and like we said here, right, we're just going to continue this. You're taking the drama on a 40, and you're putting all your does out here, right? Larger areas, let's do this. And the next thing, you're putting little areas to back up those potentially to give something to bed. Well, here you go again. You're putting more attention to the outside. Now, guys, this next step is here. This whole area has a potential to produce or be potentially buck bedding, right? No signs on it that says does can't go there. But now we have multiple options before they even get there. What you'll find is they don't want to go that far, right? They're very social. They want to get out here and go to the next family group and go talk to the does here, go talk to the does. Not pointing any fingers at any of our female friends, but they're social butterflies, if you will, right? A lot of us guys don't like that, right? Just put us in the woods and send us out deer hunting and a chainsaw and we'll be good. The ladies sometimes they like to, and there's a lot of ladies probably watching this too that like the habitat part of it too, but there's just certain people in the world, there's certain deer that just like being around a lot of people. That's what it is, guys. We're layering this, right? We're giving more options. The next step is this, guys. We're going to use this same deal. We're going to put a stand. We got our stand here, got our stand here. We're looking at, we've got these habitat pockets now built in here. Now we're looking at this, right? We're looking at the possibility, how do we give a buck a potential to bed? How do we say, this is a good high spot in the core. It's high and dry, meaning it's not wet area. He can see some stuff. We want to give him a potential to have a chance to maybe call that area home. This is where it comes in. We start looking at, at an area internal that's away from all of this. And here we go again. These can be, 30 to 50 feet in diameter. If you got a lot of big canopy, then maybe they got to be 50, 60 feet. These are bigger. These are a little smaller. These are even smaller. So here's the piece of the puzzle, guys. If you never build, maybe buck bedding's not even the third. Maybe it's down the chain even further. If you never build buck bedding, you're not doing yourself any harm, because they will find a spot that's not touched. It only takes one tree. It only takes, because they don't want to be here. Maybe a little canopy, maybe a bunch of, they don't want that. They want to be secluded. So you find these locations, they're much smaller, right? Maybe there's 6 trees in here. Maybe there's 10 trees in here. Maybe there's 30 trees in here that are down, something like that, right? Here's the piece of the puzzle, guys, and we'll close on this one. Don't build these unless you finish it off. Do yourself a favor, separate video, separate strategy, kind of letting you in on my piece of my advice, my tips. But this is what you want, guys. You want to go in here, tip these trees to the outside, couple trees, maybe lay a hinge or 2 on the inside, maybe find these spots that already have a, conifer, something there that you can use as side structure. Maybe we're going to talk about a possibility, what do you do in these areas to add more thermal protection, stuff like that. Mulch them trails in, guys, make these areas really secure, with some directional hinge cutting we're going to talk about, make them really secure, coming back out to the point of impact, guys. So this stands out. This is all FSI, guys. At the end of the day, this is all FSI. These areas are just all, select cut. It's down to 14 or 16 inches. There's vegetation there. We did that to bring some deer in. These areas, guys, are down even further. In other words, down meaning sunlight down or some structure even further, right? So take this into consideration, guys. Then you have a grid built. Then, like the video before, now we look at the maintenance. How you maintain them is maybe you maintain them with fire. Maybe you go in here every, 3rd year and cut off a bunch of the, stuff that's silver dollar size or bigger. And that's how we get into the more maintenance side. Bedding areas, guys, does first, habitat pocket second, buck bedding third. If you do any buck bedding, make it the last thought, not the first, guys. That's how I build bedding. That's how I recommend you looking at that as well. Thanks, guys.